The arrival. Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the interstellar transport, her eyes wide as she took in the alien landscape before her. The planet Xenora loomed large, its swirling atmosphere a mix of deep purples and vibrant greens, unlike anything she'd ever seen on Earth. As the ship began its descent, Sarah's stomach tightened with a mix of excitement and apprehension. She'd come a long way from her days as a zookeeper in San Diego. When the call went out for Earth to send its best and brightest to work on alien worlds, Sarah had jumped at the chance. Her expertise in handling Earth's most dangerous predators had caught the attention of the Galactic Zoological Society, and now here she was, about to become the first human zookeeper on an alien world. The ship touched down with a gentle thud, and Sarah gathered her belongings. As she stepped off the transport, the alien atmosphere hit her like a wall. The air was thicker, heavier, with an unfamiliar scent that tickled her nostrils. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that the atmospheric converters in her system would keep her safe. A group of tall, willowy aliens approached her. Their skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, and their large, multifaceted eyes regarded her with what Sarah could only interpret as skepticism. "Welcome to Xenora, human Sarah Chen," one of the aliens said, its voice a melodious trill. "I am Zaxler, overseer of the Xenora Interplanetary Zoo. We hope your journey was tolerable." Sarah straightened her back and met Zaxler's gaze. "Thank you for the welcome, Overseer Zaxler. The journey was fascinating, and I'm eager to begin my work here." Zaxler's head tilted slightly, and gesture Sarah couldn't quite interpret. "Yes, well, we shall see. Follow me, please. I will show you to your quarters and brief you on your duties." As they walked through the sprawling complex of the zoo, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the incredible diversity of life forms around her. Enclosures stretched as far as the eye could see, housing creatures that defied her earthly imagination. Beings of pure energy floated in contained fields, while massive, tentacled monsters lurked in enormous tanks. "Your primary duty," Zaxler explained as they walked, "will be to assist with the care and containment of our more challenging specimens. We have had some difficulties recently, and the Galactic Council suggested we try a different approach." The way Zaxler said different made it clear that they weren't entirely convinced of the merits of this plan. Sarah had encountered similar attitudes back on Earth when she'd first proposed her more empathetic approaches to animal care. She was used to skepticism. "I understand," Sarah replied. "I've reviewed the files you sent, and I'm confident I can help improve the situation here." Zaxler stopped abruptly, turning to face Sarah. "Human Chen, I feel I must be direct. Many here do not believe a member of your species is capable of handling the dangers we face daily in this facility. Humans are, how shall I put this, considered somewhat primitive by galactic standards." Sarah felt a flare of indignation, but she kept her voice calm and professional. "I appreciate your honesty, Overseer. I'm aware of how humans are perceived. But I assure you, what we lack in advanced technology, we make up for in adaptability and innovation. I'm here to do a job, and I intend to do it well." Zaxler's multifaceted eyes seemed to shimmer for a moment. "Very well. We shall see. Come, let me show you to the enclosure of the Void Stalker. It has been particularly troublesome." As they approached a massive, dark enclosure, Sarah could feel a palpable sense of dread emanating from the alien staff around her. The enclosure itself seemed to absorb light, and strange, otherworldly sounds echoed from within. "The Void Stalker," Zaxler explained, "is a predator from the darkest reaches of the galaxy. It hunts by sensing fear and feeding on the psychic energy of its prey. We have lost 3 keepers to it already." Sarah studied the enclosure, her mind already working on possible approaches. Has anyone tried to understand its behavior patterns, its natural habitat? Zaxler's tone was dismissive. "It is a monster, Human Chen. There is nothing to understand. It must simply be contained and controlled." Sarah bit back a retort. This attitude was exactly what she was here to change. I see. Well, I'd like to begin by observing the Void Stalker. Can you provide me with a safe vantage point? Zaxler seemed surprised by her request, but nodded. There is an observation deck above. But be warned, even from there, the creature can sense your presence. Do not stay too long, or you may find yourself affected. As Sarah climbed to the observation deck, she could feel the eyes of the alien staff on her. Their doubt was palpable, but she was used to that. She had faced similar challenges on Earth, convincing old-school Zookeepers that empathy and understanding were more effective than dominance and control. From the deck, Sarah peered into the darkness of the Void Stalker's enclosure. At first, she saw nothing. Then, slowly, she began to make out a shape. It was like looking at a hole in reality, a patch of absolute darkness that moved with terrifying grace. As she watched, Sarah felt a cold tendril of fear trying to worm its way into her mind, but she had come prepared. Back on Earth, she had trained extensively in meditation and mental discipline. She took a deep breath, centered herself, and pushed the fear aside. The shape in the enclosure seemed to pause, as if confused. Sarah leaned forward, intrigued. Was the Void Stalker used to sensing fear from all who observed it? What would it make of her calm presence? After several minutes of observation, Sarah descended from the deck. Zaxler and the other aliens were waiting, looking at her with a mix of surprise and concern. "Well, Human Chen," Zaxler asked, "what do you make of the beast?" Sarah considered her words carefully. "It's fascinating. I believe I may have some ideas on how to approach its care, but I'll need more time to observe and plan." Zaxler's head tilted again, this time in what Sarah interpreted as surprise. "You wish to continue working with the Void Stalker, even after sensing its power?" Sarah nodded firmly. "Absolutely. Every creature, no matter how dangerous, has patterns and behaviors we can understand. The Void Stalker is no different. With time and patience, I believe we can improve its situation and make it safer for the staff to manage." The aliens exchanged glances, their iridescent skin flickering with colors Sarah couldn't quite interpret. Finally, Zaxler spoke. "Very well, Human Chen. You may continue your observations. But be warned, we will not be responsible for what happens if you persist in this unorthodox approach." As Sarah was led to her quarters, she could hear the aliens whispering among themselves. She caught phrases like "strange human" and "won't last a week." But Sarah didn't mind. She was used to being underestimated. That night, as she lay in her alien bed, staring out at the unfamiliar stars of Sonora, Sarah felt a surge of determination. She had come here to make a difference, to show that humanity had something valuable to offer the galactic community. And she would do just that, one dangerous alien creature at a time. Tomorrow, she would begin in earnest. The Void Stalker awaited, and Sarah Chen was ready for the challenge. First encounters. The next morning, Sarah Chen awoke early, her mind already racing with ideas for her first full day at the Sonora Interplanetary Zoo. As she made her way to the main complex, she couldn't help but notice the curious and often skeptical glances from the alien staff. Their doubt only fueled her determination. Zaxler was waiting for her at the entrance to the dangerous species section. "Human Chen," the alien greeted, its multifaceted eyes shimmering with what Sarah interpreted as a mix of curiosity and concern. "Are you certain you wish to begin with the Void Stalker? We have many other specimens that might be more suitable for a human's capabilities." Sarah met Zaxler's gaze steadily. "I appreciate your concern, Overseer, but I believe starting with your most challenging case is the best way to demonstrate my methods. I've prepared a plan of approach." Zaxler's iridescent skin flickered with surprise. "A plan? Already? Very well, let us hear it." As they walked towards the Void Stalker's enclosure, Sarah outlined her strategy. "First, we need to understand the creature's natural environment. You mentioned it comes from the darkest reaches of the galaxy. Can you provide more specifics?" Zaxler produced a holographic display, showing a region of space so dark it seemed to absorb the light of nearby stars. The Void Stalker was captured here, in what we call the umbral depths. It's a region of space where light behaves strangely. Sarah studied the display intently. Fascinating. And what about its feeding habits in its natural habitat? Surely it can't survive solely on fear. Zaxler's head tilted in what Sarah was beginning to recognize as a sign of surprise. We have not considered this. The creature feeds so readily on the fear of our staff that we assumed this was its primary sustenance. Sarah nodded, her suspicions confirmed. I believe that's our first mistake. The Void Stalker is likely using fear as a substitute for its natural diet. If we can identify and provide its proper nutrition, we might see a significant change in its behavior. As they reached the Void Stalker's enclosure, Sarah could sense the apprehension from the alien staff around her. She took a deep breath, centering herself as she had practiced, and approached the observation deck. I'd like to attempt something, Sarah said, turning to Zaxler. Can we adjust the lighting in the enclosure to more closely mimic the umbral depths? Zaxler hesitated. It is possible, but it would make observing the creature much more difficult. That's all right, Sarah assured. Sometimes, to understand a creature, we need to experience its world. With reluctance, Zaxler gave the order. The already dim lighting in the Void Stalker's enclosure dimmed further until it was almost pitch black. Sarah could hear the nervous shuffling of the alien staff behind her. Taking another deep breath, Sarah focused her mind, pushing away any trace of fear or apprehension. She reached out with her other senses, listening intently to the subtle sounds within the enclosure. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then Sarah heard it. A soft, almost melodic humming, barely audible but distinct. She leaned forward, intrigued. Do you hear that? She whispered to Zaxler. The alien's head tilted in confusion. Hear what? Human Chen. I detect no sound. Sarah's excitement grew. There's a humming coming from the enclosure. It's very faint, but it's there. I think the Void Stalker might be trying to communicate. Zaxler's skin flickered with a range of colors. Communicate? Impossible. The creature is a mindless predator. But Sarah wasn't listening. She was focused entirely on the soft humming. Slowly, carefully, she began to hum back, matching the pitch and rhythm as best she could. The effect was immediate and startling. The darkness in the enclosure seemed to shift and swirl, and Sarah could sense a massive presence approaching the observation deck. Human Chen. Zaxler's voice was tight with tension. I must insist you step back. The creature is too close. But Sarah held her ground, continuing her soft humming. Gradually, a shape began to form in the darkness. The Void Stalker. Up close, Sarah could see that it wasn't simply black, but a swirling mass of deep purples and blues, like a piece of the cosmic night given form. The creature hovered before her, separated only by the transparent barrier of the observation deck. Its form rippled and shifted, and Sarah had the distinct impression it was studying her just as intently as she was studying it. Remarkable. Sarah breathed. It's beautiful. Zaxler and the other aliens watched in stunned silence as Sarah and the Void Stalker regarded each other. There was no aggression from the creature, no attempt to inspire fear. Just curiosity. After several minutes, Sarah slowly stepped back, and the Void Stalker retreated into the darkness of its enclosure. The lights gradually came back up, and Sarah turned to face the astonished aliens. I believe we've made our first breakthrough, she said, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. The Void Stalker isn't just a mindless predator. It's intelligent, and I think it's been trying to communicate this whole time. Zaxler's multifaceted eyes seemed to be having trouble focusing. This is unprecedented. How did you know to hum? Sarah smiled. I didn't. I just listened. Sometimes, that's all it takes to begin understanding. Over the next few days, Sarah spent hours observing and interacting with the Void Stalker. She worked with the alien scientists to analyze the humming sounds, discovering complex patterns that suggested a form of language. She also pushed for changes to the creature's diet, introducing elements found in the umbral depths. The results were dramatic. The Void Stalker became calmer, more responsive. It no longer lashed out at the staff, and the oppressive aura of fear around its enclosure diminished. Word of Sarah's success spread quickly through the zoo. Aliens from all departments began to seek her out, asking for her input on other difficult species. Sarah found herself working longer hours, moving from enclosure to enclosure, always listening, always observing. She made breakthroughs with creatures the aliens had long since given up on. The crystalline Rezoring, a being of living crystal that had been lashing out at its caretakers, calmed when Sarah introduced specific light frequencies into its habitat. The Psychic Maelstrom, a creature of pure mental energy that had been driving its handlers to madness, became docile when Sarah suggested a diet rich in rare neural proteins. With each success, Sarah could sense a shift in the way the aliens regarded her. The skepticism was fading, replaced by a growing respect and curiosity. Even Zaxler, initially so dismissive of her abilities, began to seek her advice regularly. One evening, as Sarah was preparing to retire to her quarters after a long day, Zaxler approached her. The alien skin was shimmering with colors Sarah had never seen before. "Human Chen," Zaxler began, its voice carrying an unfamiliar tone. I believe I owe you an apology." Sarah blinked in surprise. An apology? For what? Zaxler's head tilted in what Sarah now recognized as a gesture of humility. "For underestimating you. For underestimating your species. What you have accomplished here in mere days, it is beyond what we achieved in years." Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you, Zaxler. That means a lot. But I hope you understand that what I'm doing isn't some special human magic. It's about patience, empathy, and a willingness to see these beings as more than just animals to be contained." Zaxler nodded slowly. "Yes, I am beginning to understand this. Your approach, it challenges much of what we thought we knew about zoology and interspecies interaction. The Galactic Zoological Society will be most interested in your findings." As they talked, Sarah could see other aliens watching them, their expressions, as far as she could interpret them, filled with a new respect. She realized that she had done more than just help some animals. She had begun to change perceptions about humanity itself. But as Sarah prepared for bed that night, she couldn't shake a niggling feeling of unease. Her success had been swift and dramatic. In her experience, such rapid change often brought its own challenges. She couldn't help but wonder what new obstacles tomorrow might bring. Little did she know, her concerns were well-founded. For even as she slept, forces were aligning against her, threatened by the change she represented. The true test of her skills, and of humanity's place in the galactic community, was yet to come. Growing tensions. As the Xenorian sun rose, casting its purple light across the alien landscape, Sarah Chen made her way to the zoo with a spring in her step. The past few weeks had been challenging but immensely rewarding. Her successes with the Void Stalker and other difficult species had earned her the respect of many of her alien colleagues. However, she was about to discover that not everyone was pleased with her progress. As she entered the main complex, Sarah immediately sensed something was off. The usual bustle of activity was muted, and she could feel the weight of many eyes upon her. Alien staff members huddled in small groups, their conversations dropping to whispers as she passed. Zaxler approached her, its iridescent skin flickering with colors that Sarah had come to recognize as concern and agitation. "Human Chen," the alien greeted, its melodious voice tinged with tension. "There have been developments. The Galactic Zoological Society has taken notice of your work." Sarah's heart leaped. "That's great news, isn't it? I thought they'd be pleased with our progress." Zaxler's head tilted in a complex gesture that Sarah couldn't quite interpret. "Some are. Others are less enthusiastic. There is concern that your methods, while effective, are unorthodox. Some fear they may be dangerous in the long term. Sarah frowned. Dangerous? How so? Before Zaxler could respond, a new voice cut through the air. Because they undermine centuries of established galactic zoological practices. Sarah turned to see a tall, imposing alien striding towards them. Unlike the willowy forms of Zaxler and the other zoo staff, this newcomer was broad-shouldered and muscular, its skin a deep metallic blue. Zaxler's skin paled slightly. Ah, Overseer Kralvox. I was just about to inform Human Chen of your arrival. The newcomer, Kralvox, fixed Sarah with a piercing gaze. Its eyes were unlike any she'd seen before, swirling vortexes of silver that seemed to bore right through her. So this is the human who thinks she can revolutionize our field overnight. Sarah straightened her back, meeting Kralvox's gaze steadily. I'm Sarah Chen, and I'm not trying to revolutionize anything. I'm just here to help care for the creatures in this zoo. Kralvox's mouth twisted into what Sarah assumed was a sneer. Care. These are dangerous beasts, human. They need to be controlled, contained. Your soft methods may seem effective now, but they will only lead to disaster. The field activated, and the Void Stalker's reaction was immediate and violent. It thrashed in its enclosure, its form expanding and contracting rapidly. The observation deck shuddered under the psychic assault. In that moment, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. Despite Kralvox's shouts of protest, she rushed to the enclosure's entrance. Human Chen, stop. You'll doom us all. Kralvox roared. But Sarah wasn't listening. She input the access code and stepped into the Void Stalker's domain. The creature's darkness swirled around her, its psychic energy palpable in the air. Sarah closed her eyes, steadied her breathing, and began to hum. The same soft, melodic tune she had used when she first connected with the Void Stalker. For a moment, nothing happened. The creature's chaotic energy continued to swirl. Then, gradually, the chaos began to subside. The Void Stalker's form coalesced, its swirling darkness taking on a more defined shape. The humming grew louder, no longer just from Sarah, but from the creature itself. Outside the enclosure, Kralvox, Zaxler, and the other alien staff watched in stunned silence as human and creature communed. The Void Stalker's threatening aura faded, replaced by a gentle, almost curious presence. After what seemed like an eternity, Sarah opened her eyes. The Void Stalker hovered before her, its form rippling gently. Slowly, carefully, Sarah reached out a hand. The creature extended a tendril of darkness, gently touching her palm. The contact lasted only a moment, but it was enough. Sarah turned and walked out of the enclosure, the Void Stalker remaining calm behind her. As the door sealed shut, Sarah found herself face to face with Kralvox. The alien's silver eyes were wide with a mixture of shock and something that might have been fear. How? Kralvox began, but seemed unable to finish the thought. Sarah, still catching her breath, met the Overseer's gaze. That's what understanding and respect can accomplish. Not control, not fear, but mutual trust. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from somewhere in the back of the gathered crowd, a sound arose. It started as a low hum, then grew louder. The alien staff, led by Zaxler, were humming the same tunes Sarah had used with the Void Stalker. It was a moment of triumph, a vindication of Sarah's methods. But as she looked at Kralvox's face, still twisted with shock and growing anger, she knew that this victory had come at a cost. The real battle, it seemed, was just beginning. As the day drew to a close, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she had crossed a line. She had proven her point, yes, but at what cost? The tensions that had been simmering beneath the surface were now out in the open. And tomorrow, she knew, would bring new challenges. But for now, as she listened to the gentle humming of her alien colleagues, echoing the song of the Void Stalker, Sarah allowed herself a moment of hope. She had come to this alien world to make a difference, to show what humanity could offer. And today, for better or worse, she had done just that. Crisis and triumph. The days following Sarah's dramatic intervention with the Void Stalker were tense. The alien staff of the Sonora Interplanetary Zoo seemed divided, with many openly supporting Sarah's methods while others, particularly those aligned with Overseer Kralvox, remained skeptical and hostile. Sarah found herself working under increasingly difficult conditions. Equipment malfunctions became frequent, feeding schedules were disrupted, and she often arrived at enclosures to find that her carefully calibrated environmental settings had been altered overnight. Despite these setbacks, Sarah refused to be deterred. She worked tirelessly, often staying late into the night to ensure the creatures under her care remained calm and healthy. The bonds she had formed, particularly with the Void Stalker, seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. One morning, about a week after the incident, Sarah arrived at the zoo to find an unusual level of activity. Aliens rushed back and forth, their skin flickering with colors she associated with alarm and fear. She spotted Zaxler in the crowd and hurried over. "Zaxler, what's happening?" she asked, her concern growing. The alien's multifaceted eyes seemed to have trouble focusing. It's the cosmic Leviathan. It's awake." Sarah felt her blood run cold. The cosmic Leviathan was a creature so dangerous, so unpredictable, that it had been kept in a state of induced hibernation since its capture. Even Sarah hadn't been allowed near its enclosure. "How is that possible?" she asked. "I thought the stasis field was foolproof." Zaxler's skin rippled with distress. "It should have been. We don't understand how this happened. Overseer Kralvox is attempting to subdue it now." But a distant roar shook the facility, cutting off Zaxler's words. Sarah could feel the vibrations in her bones. "Take me there," she said firmly. Zaxler hesitated. "Human Chen, it's too dangerous. The cosmic Leviathan is unlike anything you've encountered before. It's a living being that's scared and confused," Sarah interrupted. "And right now, it needs our help. Please, Zaxler, trust me." After a moment's hesitation, Zaxler nodded and led Sarah towards the source of the commotion. As they approached the cosmic Leviathan's enclosure, the scene that greeted them was one of chaos. The creature, a massive, shimmering being that seemed to phase in and out of reality, thrashed against its containment field. Its form was hard to comprehend, shifting between states of matter in a dizzying display. Kralvox stood at a control panel, frantically adjusting settings. Increased the neutrino flow. He barked at a group of terrified technicians. "We must subdue it at all costs." Sarah could see the pain in the creature's movements, could sense its confusion and fear. Without hesitation, she strode towards Kralvox. "Stop," she shouted over the din. "You're only making it worse." Kralvox whirled to face her, his silver eyes flashing with anger. This is no place for your soft-hearted foolishness, human. This creature could destroy the entire facility if we don't contain it." Sarah stood her ground. "And your methods are pushing it to do just that. Please, let me try." "Absolutely not," Kralvox snarled. "I will not risk." His words were cut off by another earth-shaking roar. The containment field flickered dangerously. "We're losing containment," a technician cried out. In that moment of distraction, Sarah made her move. She darted past Kralvox and approached the edge of the containment field. The cosmic Leviathan's shifting form loomed before her, a swirling mass of energy and matter. "Sarah, no," Zaxler called out, but she barely heard him. Sarah closed her eyes, steadied her breathing, and reached out with her mind. She thought of the vastness of space, of the cosmic dance of stars and planets. She thought of the peace and beauty of the universe. And then, softly at first but growing stronger, she began to sing. It wasn't a terrestrial song, nor was it the humming she had used with the Void Stalker. This was something else entirely, a melody that seemed to come from the depths of her being, a song of starlight and gravity, of cosmic winds and the spaces between galaxies. For a moment, nothing seemed to change. The cosmic Leviathan continued its frenzied movements. The containment field still flickered dangerously. But then, almost imperceptibly at first, the creature's movements began to slow. Its form, which had been rapidly shifting between states, began to stabilize. The roaring quieted, replaced by a low, harmonious hum that seemed to resonate with Sarah's song. The assembled aliens watched in awe as human and cosmic entity communed. The cosmic Leviathan's form condensed, taking on a more defined shape, that of a vast, cetacean-like being, its skin shimmering with the light of distant stars. Slowly, gently, a tendril of starlight extended from the creature, reaching toward Sarah. As it touched her, Sarah gasped. In that moment of contact, she saw visions of the cosmos, of vast nebulae and newborn stars, of the dance of galaxies and the song of the universe itself. When Sarah opened her eyes, she found the cosmic Leviathan floating peacefully within its enclosure, its form now stable and calm. The containment field had solidified, no longer under stress. Silence reigned in the chamber. Sarah turned to face the assembled aliens, all of whom were staring at her with a mixture of awe, confusion, and in Kralvox's case, barely concealed rage. "How?" Zaxler began, its voice barely above a whisper. "How did you do that?" Sarah, still reeling from the cosmic visions she had experienced, took a moment to find her voice. I'm not entirely sure. I just tried to connect with it, to understand its nature. It's not a monster to be subdued. It's a being of the cosmos, meant to roam the vastness of space. Our containment was driving it mad." Kralvox stepped forward, his silver eyes stormy. "This changes nothing. Your reckless actions could have doomed us all. The creature is contained for now, but—" He was cut off by a new voice, one that seemed to resonate from the very walls of the chamber. "Enough." All eyes turned to see a new figure enter the room. This alien was unlike any Sarah had seen before. It seemed to shimmer with an inner light, its form fluid and ethereal. Zaxler's skin paled. "High Counselor Zinra," it breathed. The newcomer, Zinra, glided into the room, its gaze fixed on Sarah. "We have been watching your work with great interest, Sarah Chen of Earth. Today, you have proven beyond doubt the value of your methods and the potential of your species." Kralvox sputtered, "But High Counselor, surely you can't condone." Zinra silenced him with a gesture. "Your ways are the past, Kralvox. We have long suspected that our approach to interstellar zoology was flawed, but it took this human to show us a better path." The High Counselor turned back to Sarah. "Your empathy, your willingness to understand rather than control, your ability to connect with beings vastly different from yourself. These are qualities that will be invaluable as we move forward into a new era of galactic cooperation." Sarah felt overwhelmed. "Thank you, High Counselor. I only wanted to help these creatures and show what humanity could offer to the galactic community." Zinra's form shimmered with what Sarah interpreted as approval. "And you have done so admirably. But this is only the beginning. We would like to offer you a position on the Galactic Zoological Council to help reshape our practices and philosophies." The chamber erupted in excited murmurs. Zaxler's skin flickered with joy, while Kralvox looked as if he had swallowed something extremely unpleasant. As the implications of the offer sank in, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. This was more than she had ever dreamed of when she first arrived on Xenora. It was a chance to make a real difference, not just for the creatures in this zoo, but for beings across the galaxy. But as she looked around at the alien faces, at the creatures she had come to know and care for, she knew that her work here was far from over. The cosmic Leviathan's peaceful hum reminded her of the challenges and wonders that still lay ahead. Sarah took a deep breath and faced the High Counselor. "I'm honored by your offer, High Counselor Zinra. But before I can accept, there's still much work to be done here. These creatures, this zoo, they still need help. And I believe that what we learn here could be the foundation for the changes you want to see." Zinra's form rippled in what Sarah hoped was understanding. "Your dedication is admirable." Sarah Chen. "Very well. Complete your work here, and know that when you are ready, the Galactic Zoological Council will welcome you." As the High Counselor departed and the excitement in the chamber began to die down, Sarah found herself at the center of a group of alien colleagues, all eager to congratulate her and learn more about her methods. But even as she basked in the glow of her success, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and challenges she could scarcely imagine. And humanity, it seemed, was ready to take its place among the stars. As she gazed at the peacefully floating form of the cosmic Leviathan, Sarah Chen smiled. Whatever the future held, she was ready to face it, one incredible creature at a time. Paradigm shift. In the weeks following the cosmic Leviathan incident, the Xenora Interplanetary Zoo underwent a dramatic transformation. Sarah Chen found herself at the center of a whirlwind of activity, her days filled with teaching, planning, and implementing sweeping changes to the zoo's operations. The alien staff, once divided, now worked together with renewed purpose. Even Kralvox, though still skeptical, had begrudgingly acknowledged the effectiveness of Sarah's methods. The creatures in the zoo thrived under the new care protocols, their enclosures redesigned to better mimic their natural habitats. One morning, as Sarah stood on the observation deck overlooking the Voidstalker's enclosure, she felt a presence beside her. It was Zaxler, the alien's iridescent skin shimmering with colors Sarah had come to associate with pride and contentment. "Human Chen," Zaxler began, its melodious voice tinged with warmth. "I never thought I'd see the day when the Voidstalker would be peaceful." Sarah smiled, watching the dark, swirling form of the creature as it moved gracefully through its enclosure. It just needed to be understood. Zaxler. They all did. Zaxler's head tilted in what Sarah now recognized as a gesture of agreement. "You have taught us much, Sarah Chen. Not just about the creatures, but about ourselves. About the power of empathy and understanding." As they stood there, Sarah reflected on her journey. She had come to Xenora hoping to make a difference, to show what humanity could offer to the galactic community. But she had never imagined the scale of the change she would inspire. News of her success had spread far beyond the zoo. Delegations from other alien species had begun to arrive, eager to learn about her methods. The Galactic Zoological Council, true to High Counselor Zinra's word, had been in constant communication, seeking her input on a complete overhaul of galactic zoological practices. But it wasn't just zoology that was changing. Sarah's work had sparked a broader conversation about interspecies communication and cooperation. The idea that understanding and empathy could bridge the gap between vastly different life forms was revolutionary in a galactic society that had long relied on technology and force to manage its diverse populations. As if reading her thoughts, Zaxler spoke again. "You know, the impact of your work goes far beyond these walls, Human Chen. There's talk in the Galactic Council of establishing a new division dedicated to interspecies understanding. They're calling it the Department of Xenoharmonics." Sarah turned to Zaxler, her eyes wide. "Xenoharmonics." The alien's skin flickered with amusement. "Yes, it's a term they've coined based on your methods. The study of finding harmony between different species. They want you to head it." The weight of the offer hit Sarah like a physical force. It was an opportunity beyond anything she had ever dreamed of. A chance to shape the future of galactic relations, to pave the way for true interspecies cooperation. But as she looked out over the zoo, at the creatures she had come to know and care for, Sarah felt a pang of reluctance. I'm honored," she said slowly, "but I'm not sure I'm ready to leave all this behind." Zaxler's multifaceted eyes seemed to twinkle. "Who said anything about leaving? The council thinks the zoo would be the perfect base for the new department, a living laboratory of interspecies harmony." Sarah's heart leaped at the idea. to continue her work here, while also expanding its scope to the entire galaxy. It was perfect. As they discussed the details, a commotion from a nearby enclosure caught their attention. It was the crystalline Resoring, its crystalline form shimmering with an unusually bright light. Sarah and Zaxler rushed to the enclosure, joined by a group of excited alien staff. As they watched, the Resoring's body began to shift and change. Slowly, gracefully, it split into two distinct forms. "It's reproducing," one of the alien scientists whispered in awe. "We've never seen this behavior in captivity before." Sarah felt a surge of joy and pride. This was more than just a biological process. It was a sign of trust. The Resoring felt safe enough, comfortable enough in its environment, to bring new life into the world. As the two Resorings sang to each other in tones of pure crystal, Sarah felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see a young alien, one of the junior staff members she had been mentoring. "Human Chin," the young alien said, its voice quivering with excitement. "I think I understand now. What you've been trying to teach us. It's not just about caring for the creatures, is it? It's about creating an environment where they can thrive, where they feel safe enough to be themselves." Sarah nodded, feeling a swell of emotion. "That's exactly it. And it applies to more than just the creatures here. It's about all of us, different species, different worlds, finding a way to coexist and flourish together." As word of the Resoring's reproduction spread through the zoo, Sarah found herself at the center of a celebration. Aliens of various species congratulated her, asked for her insights, and shared their own observations. In that moment, surrounded by the joy and excitement of her alien colleagues, Sarah Chen realized that she had achieved something truly remarkable. She had not only changed the way the galaxy approached zoology, but she had also opened the door to a new era of interspecies cooperation. The path ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, and those who resisted change. But as Sarah looked around at the diverse group of beings working together in harmony, she knew that the future was bright. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger galaxy, and thanks to Sarah's work, it had done so not with advanced technology or military might, but with empathy, understanding, and a willingness to listen and learn. As the celebration continued around her, Sarah's gaze was drawn back to the Void Stalker's enclosure. The creature, once feared and misunderstood, now moved with a grace and peace that seemed to embody the change that had taken place. Sarah smiled. This was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and mysteries beyond imagination. And now, thanks to a human zookeeper who dared to listen and understand, the beings of the galaxy had a new way to explore it together. As the Xenorian sun set, casting its purple light across the alien landscape, Sarah Chen stood tall, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. For she knew that with understanding, empathy, and cooperation, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The stars beckoned, and humanity, alongside its new alien allies, was ready to answer the call. Sarah felt a flare of indignation, but kept her voice calm. "With all due respect, Overseer Kralvox, the results speak for themselves. The creatures are calmer, healthier, and easier to manage than ever before." Kralvox's eyes narrowed. "For now. But what happens when they inevitably turn on you? When your misplaced empathy leads to escapes, injuries, or worse?" Before Sarah could respond, Zaxler stepped in. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion in my office. Overseer Kralvox has some concerns he wishes to address." As they made their way to Zaxler's office, Sarah could feel the tension in the air. Something had shifted, and she had a sinking feeling that her work was about to become much more complicated. Once inside the office, Kralvox wasted no time. "The Galactic Zoological Society has sent me to evaluate the situation here. Your methods, Human Chen, while yielding short-term results, are causing concern among our highest-ranking members." Sarah took a deep breath, centering herself. "I understand your concerns, Overseer Kralvox. But I assure you, My methods are based on sound principles of animal behavior and ecology. By understanding these creatures, by meeting their needs, we can create a safer, more stable environment for both them and their caretakers. Kralvox's silver eyes swirled dangerously. Understanding. Needs? These are not pets, human. They are dangerous, often hostile life forms that need to be studied and contained. Your approach risks anthropomorphizing them, attributing qualities they do not possess. Sarah felt her patience wearing thin. With all due respect, it's not anthropomorphizing to recognize that all living beings have needs and behaviors shaped by their environments. By understanding and respecting those needs, we can create better, more humane, and ultimately more effective containment strategies. The argument continued for hours. Sarah presented data, showed recordings of her interactions with the creatures, and explained the principles behind her methods. Kralvox remained skeptical, constantly pushing back with traditional galactic zoological theories and practices. Zaxler, caught in the middle, seemed unsure which side to take. Sarah could see the conflict in the alien's shifting skin colors, respect for her accomplishments warring with deference to established galactic authorities. As the day wore on, a compromise of sorts was reached. Sarah would be allowed to continue her work, but under increased scrutiny. Kralvox would remain at the zoo to observe and evaluate her methods personally. As they left the office, Kralvox pulled Sarah aside. "Do not think this is over, human," the alien said, its voice low and threatening. "I will be watching your every move. One mistake, one sign that your methods are putting this facility at risk, and I will shut you down. The galaxy is not ready for your kind to be meddling in matters beyond your understanding." Sarah met Kralvox's gaze unflinchingly. "I understand you're concerned, Overseer, but I stand by my work. I'm here to help these creatures and to prove that humanity has something valuable to offer the galactic community. I won't be intimidated into abandoning my principles." As Kralvox stormed off, Zaxler approached Sarah. "I apologize for the difficulty, human Chen. Kralvox is set in the old ways, but many of us see the value in your work. Please, do not let this deter you." Sarah nodded, grateful for the support. "Thank you, Zaxler. I won't, but I have a feeling things are about to get a lot more challenging around here." Over the next few days, Sarah found her work constantly interrupted by Kralvox's presence. The overseer loomed over her during every interaction with the zoo's creatures, questioning her methods and often interfering with her carefully planned routines. The Void Stalker, sensing the tension, became agitated once more. The crystalline Razorwing's harmonious hum turned discordant. Even the psychic maelstrom, which had been calm for weeks, began to pulse with erratic energy. Sarah struggled to maintain her composure, to keep her focus on the creature's needs despite the constant criticism and interference. She knew that now, more than ever, she needed to prove the validity of her methods. One afternoon, as Sarah was attempting to calm the agitated Void Stalker, Kralvox's interference reached a breaking point. The overseer insisted on activating the enclosure's fear-inducing field, a method Sarah had specifically advised against. "This creature responds to fear," Kralvox insisted. "It must be reminded of its place." "No, wait," Sarah cried, but it was too late.